I'm going to start today's episode by taking a guess as to what you are thinking. A Ford here on the old show, it's been years. Have you changed your stance on Ford, or have you just lost your mind? The answer to either question is a resounding no. I'm just making a very unusual exception, and that is not because of the shade of gray or the black wheels. It's more because of the owner's manual, at least the pouch it comes in. Ford Performance. That tells us there is something underneath here you and I need to unpack, something I have wanted to unpack with you guys for quite some time, and that would be a 2.3 four-cylinder turbocharged engine. Yes, it is related to the 2.3 on offer in the Mustang, but here 350 horsepower, which comes in at a very high engine speed of 6,000 RPM, and torque, 350 pound-feet of torque, which comes in at 3,200 RPM. It is on offer with any transmission you want, as long as it has 3 pedals, and it sends that power to all 4 wheels in a very unusual setup, which is really what this car is about, not the turbo engine. So with that, let's unpack driving dynamics. Let's first unpack the name, rank, and serial number before we dive into the complicated bits. This started out life as a front-wheel drive vehicle, which means there are some engineering challenges that remain. For example, the weight distribution, 59.4 in the front, 40.6 in the rear. But the Ford engineers did make some changes to mitigate that a bit. Like, for example, the springs in the front, 33% stiffer, the springs in the rear, 38% stiffer. The dampers changed to an adjustable setup. We'll spend some more time playing around with that in the full first drive review. The brakes changed, like for example, the rotors in the front, 350 millimeter diameter, and then Brembo calipers all the way around. Then there's that all-wheel drive system. And if I'm honest, the all-wheel drive system is the reason why I've made the exception for this vehicle. Because when a company like Ford or Volkswagen, they look to graft on an all-wheel drive system to a hot hatch, they usually look to a company called Haldex. And we've driven many vehicles like that, like the Golf R or even the Buick Opel Twins. And basically what that does is it's a front-wheel drive vehicle that sends up to 50% of the power to the rear wheel. That's lovely, but you and I are broken. You and I are car guys and gals that want things that don't make sense. Well, apparently the Ford engineers want things that don't make sense. So they went to a company called GKN, and they made, there's no other way to put them, it's like a Frankenstein-type contraption. They're these electro-hydraulic power control modules. There's 2 in the car. There's one in the front and one in the rear. The one in the front can send up to 70% of the torque to the rear wheels. Then the one in the rear, and there's 2 clutches, there's one on this side, one on that side, and it can vary the power up to 100% from side to side. Then let's say for the sake of discussion, you are taking your grandmother, your girlfriend, your mother across town for some like holiday get-together, and you need to be more prudent. Well, it can turn off the rear wheels and thus focus on better fuel economy, leaving it a front-wheel drive vehicle. So you got that going for you. Now, we're going to spend some more time playing around with this in the full first drive review. Let's just say that I was so excited to drive this. We are not going to do this in California. I have traveled all the way across the country to the Ocala National Forest, so we're going to see something a little bit different, so make sure you join us for the full first drive review. Now, this is still a Focus, so let's unpack if there are any changes on the inside. Inside, there are no Frankenstein engineering tricks to speak of. There is a box standard Focus interior. However, there are a couple of differences. For example, 3 gauges up here, one of them being a turbo boost gauge. Then blue stitching that is on the steering wheel, the seats, armrest, parking brake, as well as shift boot. Then the seats themselves, they are Recaro seats. Now, your first impression of these seats is different than after driving them for a couple of 100 miles, as I have. So we're going to spend some time unpacking that in the full first drive review. Then the rest of it is box standard Focus, like for example the infotainment system, no Apple CarPlay or Android Auto that I've been playing around with, the gauges, all that kind of stuff. I will say this, we are going to spend some time talking about the pricing, and I don't mean just the MSRP, I mean the actual, when you turn up at a dealer kind of pricing for this thing. And I have to say, the thing that jumps out at you is the tactile feel, which is not bad for an $18,000 car. But when you're getting into $40,000, that's when you have a bit of a problem, especially when you look across the aisle at a Volkswagen, which does feel like a $35,000 car on the inside. That said, you're going to find out in the full first drive review that there is a significant difference in the way these cars drive. I'm sorry I'm kind of giving it away now, but yeah, there's that. So let's step back outside to the Ocala National Forest. Two more things you and I need to cover. The first is rather obvious, and that is the wing. That is fitted as standard on all Focus RS. Second is the structure. So this is what? Almost double the horsepower of a standard Focus. So the engineers had to go through and stiffen up the vehicle. So overall it is 23% stiffer than a base Focus. And interestingly, they both go down the same manufacturing line. That is about everything for the tech review. You and I are going to cover more in the full first drive review from here in the Ocala National Forest in Florida, so make sure you come back for that. Until then, I want to leave you guys with a question. This is more of a straw poll. I'm very intrigued by this vehicle, and what I'd love to know is how many of you own this vehicle in Europe as opposed to how many of you own this in the US. So let me know, A, if you own one, B, when did you get it, and most importantly, C, where do you live? Also, you know what, for good measure, let me know, what do you do with it? Do you track it or you just daily drive it? Let me know in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV all one word, MotoManTV all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, I want to leave you with two things. Number one, make sure you download our fancy new updated mobile application, which you can get for free at Apple iTunes and Google Play. And oh, by the way, subscribe and click notifications on YouTube. And number two, a fun fact. So yes, I came to Florida to drive this, but that was not 100% of the reason. I also came for the Amelia Island Concours. And you know, I love this show because you get to see old cars, which I absolutely love. But this is an unusual show because they always have cool old race cars. But here, they had a cadre of Group C race cars, things you don't normally see, like the Toyota. Well, the one that really spoke to me, the Le Mans winning from 1991, the Mazda 787B. It is a car that does not go on a boat ever, it only flies, and its caretaker, who is never away from the car, whether it's in Japan or anywhere else, he was one of the techs back when the car raced in 1991. Until I see you next time, bis später.